You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. You always thought that you were weak, but babe, you're wrong. Yeah, you better step into the light, just give it a try. Think that it's time you let that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. And who cares if you might mess it up? You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Go ahead and shine, darling. Go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing? I'm so excited. I can't even stand it. Hello, everybody. Hi, some new faces. How's everybody doing? I am too excited to go through and tell you all hello, which is why I did it in the intro. There's just too much going on for all the excitement. So yes, there is some redecoration happening. I'm seeing the chat about it. Richard, I see you. And I see a bot, so help me out, mods. It's all on you tonight because I am not paying attention to you except for questions. JK, love you all. So if you have questions for me, hit me with a Q before them so I can easily find them and star them and get back to you with it later. And for now, I'm going to get into the intro that we have all been waiting for. We are all so excited for, and that, thank you for that, Kira. Thank you. Thank you for getting that. I appreciate it. Mods are on it. Who's excited about Lisa Fipps? I am. That's who. Lisa Fipps is a graduate of Ball State University, an award-winning former journalist, current director of marketing for a public library, where she won the Sarah Laughlin Marketing Award, and an author of middle grade books. Starfish is her debut novel. She's working on her next novel and several others. She currently lives in Indiana and has lived in Texas. She was dog mom to Princess Gigi Pugsley, or Gigi for short, and also loathes folding clothes as much as I do. With that, let me bring in my new best friend forever, Lisa Fipps. How are you?
I am fine, and you totally nailed the intro because I'm like, he totally read my website. Yay!
I loved your website. We're going to be talking about it.
Thank you.
And the playlist. I mean, you did all my work for me, all the research.
I love the song at the beginning. Was it Shine, right?
Yeah. That's I don't even know where I got it. It's copyright free.
I may have to add that.
I'm using it for my vlog. I will send you the link here. I got you covered. So welcome, Lisa Fipps. How are you?
Fine. This is going to be so much fun. I've looked forward to it all day.
Me too. I can't even wait. So let me give you a full screen to kind of introduce yourself and tell folks where they can find you all over the interwebs.
Okay. Well, I have a website. It's authorlisafipps.com. And just remember to spell Fipps with an F, because you spell with a PH, you will never find me, or you're going to find someone else who's not me. And I can't guarantee what they'll be like. My brand is Author Lisa Fipps. So you can find me at Author Lisa Fipps on Twitter and on Facebook. And then I got hacked on Instagram, and I still can't get my freaking account back. So I had to change it to Lisa Fipps Author there. But you can find me there as well.
Wow, you got hacked. Bummer.
No.
I'm not about that life. That makes me all kinds of nervous. Did they get anything fun in your DMs, or was it just all people like me going, we love you in your book?
They didn't get anything fun in I'm too boring of a person to have anything too much fun in my DMs. They haven't done anything with the account. I thought that they would mess it up or whatever. Yeah. I think it just was some kind of a bot thing, but what they did was they changed it so when I try to reset, and it goes to my email for me to reset, but then the confirmation goes to them, and so it's like this loop I can't get out of. And anyway, drama. So we're the drama. That's what I'm hearing. Just Eva says, welcome, Lisa Fipps. So excited to meet you and hear all the things. Barrett has been singing your praises for too long. That's true. I've been freaking out. And Devin, you are the real MVP, dropping that in chat for me. Thank you so much for dropping the link. I appreciate you. Well, I am going to start off by kind of letting folks know how we connected, which was, and I'm going to read the email and embarrass myself for what I said to you. But so Lisa was on my friends, Robin Castle is a good friend of mine, and she and Joa have a podcast. And actually, when I was interviewed on their channel, they asked me which books I loved of 2021.
And I mentioned Starfish, and then I was listening to their podcast, and they had you on, and I'm going, what? And one of the advice I gave them was like, shoot your shot, like ask reach out and ask the person you think will never say yes. And of course I'm thinking they asked my person. So anyway, so I hopped into DMs, made a bit of a fool of myself, and I'm going to read you all the email I wrote Lisa Fipps. So here we go. Dear Lisa Fipps, I am the gay guy who fanboyed out in your Instagram DMs this weekend after listening to your interview on the Robin and Joa podcast. I'm not sure I can put into words what your book meant to me as a reader and as a writer, but I'm going to attempt it. As a reader, thank you. I understood Ellie from the first page and felt every turn on the roller coaster of emotions in the book. I grew up a chubby kid, and my dad was a body shamer. I have memories of him telling me to sit on my hands at the dinner table, including in public or in front of other people, when he felt I had eaten enough. He made it a point to shame me publicly about my body all my life. When I suspected I might have Crohn's disease, when a cousin was diagnosed, he said he didn't believe me because I was too fat to have it. Enter this book and the flood of emotions that it released. As a writer, you woke me up. I had jumped into the query trenches for the first time in spring 2021 and had an R&R I worked on all summer. It was rejected, and after that, I felt a little lost. The next story I wanted to write was a middle grade story, a departure from my comfortable YA stories, but I wasn't sure about the voice. Then my favorite bookseller from my favorite local bookstore suggested Starfish. I devoured it and found my voice, the voice I was afraid to let out, the voice I was sure no one would want to listen to, because I spent a lifetime with people telling me to make my fabulous smaller. I now starfish and take up all the room I need. Even if it doesn't work out for you to be a guest, I just want to gush one more time about Starfish and how moved I was by it. I have evangelized it far and wide. While I'm curious about the YA version of Starfish, I am so glad you rewrote it for MG. I only wish my younger version of myself had this book during those tough years. You have given all of us kids that were made to feel ugly and undeserving of love, for lack of better words, a character that we can understand, root for, and love. Thank you for being awesome.
Now, see, we need to be in person because I really want to hug you right now. I'm sitting here trying not to cry because my makeup's going to run and I have another event I have to do tonight.
I know, we won't do that. We're not doing that today. However, I needed to read it to, I think, the audience, just so they can understand why I loved it and why I was such a fan and how you touched me. So with that, let's shift gears, and now we can kind of move into the talk. So, talking about Starfish, tell me a little bit about your query submission process and your journey. How did you get from the idea to book in my hand, ripping my heart out of my chest and putting it back whole?
You know, when you say things like that, you make it hard for me to say something next because I'm like, you are a hard act to follow, sir. So, okay. So I hate to say this. I had a fairly easy query process. And I say that, I hate telling people that because I don't want to make people who don't have an easy process feel bad. It was just the luck of the draw. I'm going to just tell you that right now. It was the luck of the draw. So I tried to find an agent, right? So I had an author friend who's very well known, who was like, "Hey, try to get in this house. You know, I have, you know," and she kind of did an introduction. And so I had sent a query to an agent, and they're like, "Send me a full," and I'm like, "Oh, cool, okay, we'll do that." And so I did. And then I didn't hear anything. And you know how it is. Like, you think that you want to hear 5 minutes later, you're ready to hear back. Because, you know, we get a little anxious. This is our life and our hearts. But, you know, it had been like, I don't know, 4 weeks or something like that, which isn't a bad.
Good. Yeah.
You know, but it'd been a while. But I thought, you know what? And I had said in there that it was an open submission because I wasn't just going to sit around because I'm not that kind of girl. And so I did like the Twitter thing, and I can't remember what it's called now, where you can try to get an agent. And so you have to like pitch in one sentence, which is right. Oh my gosh.
Done it. It's awful.
I know, it's horrible. And you feel so stupid. It's like speed dating, but it's worse.
Yeah.
And but I heard I got a like, which means, hey, I want to see your manuscript, from Liza Fleisig with Liza Royce Agency. And so I was just like, okay. So I went ahead and sent it to her. And then she called me and she's just like, I love this book. I love this book. And da, 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 da. And I was like, okay, full disclosure, and I explained how I had it out at this other house. And I said, but you know what? You and I are vibing, like total vibe city. And I had like goosebumps on my arms. And she's like, I do too. And it was like one of those moments where you connect in like a way that, you're like, okay, there's something here. And so I said, well, let me contact that person. And the person had gone on maternity leave and no one had picked up the slack from that desk, which is, typical. But it was just like, I was grateful actually, because I was like, so I said, well, okay, then I withdraw. And then I signed with Liza. And then so we sent out Starfish, and Nancy said, hey, can we talk? And I'm like, do I want to talk to Nancy Paulson of Nancy Paulson Books with me? Well, maybe. Of course I'll talk.
Yeah, I want to talk. Yeah.
I know.
I'll talk to her. Call me. Pick me.
I know. Pick me. And so we talked and she's like, this is in YA, but I think you should rewrite it to middle grade. And here's why. Because if you write it in YA, it's going to reach people who are in high school and early college, and they've already lived this life. And it's going to be like a book of reminiscence where they go, yep, all that happened to me, and it was horrible. But if you rewrite it to middle grade, I'm sorry, there was something popped up. I'm like, what did they say?
Michelle Schusterman says, nah, I'll pass, said no author ever.
Yeah, I know, right?
Exactly.
No, forget that. I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
And so then, and she said, but if you write it for middle grade, you're going to reach the people while they're being bullied the most, because that's when, it's the worst in middle grade and junior high. And she said, and reach them and give them the tools they need to deal with it. And maybe, just maybe, fingers crossed, toes crossed, you can reach some of the bullies and get them to rethink of what they're doing and stop. And I was like, I am so in. And so she bought it in a preempt.
Yeah.
And so that's how that happened. And I tell people, and I hate to tell that story because I know some people have, like tons of agents they've tried to get or whatever, but it was seriously the luck of the draw.
Listen,
right?
Tell the story. Even those of us, or at least those of us with pure hearts that are in the trenches, I'm happy for you. Like, I'm the first person to be happy for somebody when they get an agent. Like, even if I have to write 10 books to get there. So that's fascinating to me. So originally it was written as YA. Mm-hmm. So my question then is, how much worse was it as a young adult story? You know what I mean?
The bullying that's why it was YA, because I had not left anything on the cutting room floor.
Oh, wow.
I had put in there, like some of the worst things that people had ever said and done to me. And that's definitely not a middle school audience kind of talk.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was, if you think Starfish is a little brutal on the bullying, you should have seen the YA version.
Wow.
Because I didn't, if you think I didn't hold back in the middle grade, you should have seen the YA.
Yeah. And Sam says, never feel bad for making it. Yeah, I think this whole crowd's with you on the listen. I'm just glad to hear that, you got the story out where it needed to be.
Yeah.
And to see the impact. I mean, that's what's been amazing. I live to watch your stories, to see the kids who send you, the pictures and things. Well, so we can't cry. We're not doing that today. So we're staying away from those questions, Lisa. Okay. So we've done that. So talk to me then. Let's go backtrack a little bit. And why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your career? Because I think it's really fascinating. So tell us how you went from being a journalist to doing marketing for a public library to, published book.
Okay. So when I was little, I used to sit under the Rose of Sharon tree in my backyard. And I used to write, draw, read, and listen to music. So I'm a total arts girl. And so I thought I would be an artist who wrote books, like sort of like a children's book, like a picture book author and illustrator. Mm-hmm. And and I took a lot of private art lessons and stuff like that. And so then when I was a sophomore in high school, though, my art teacher and I like clashed big time. She was the only teacher because it was a small rural school. So I was just like, forget that. So I dropped out of art and I took creative writing. And because I had been writing, but I kept it private, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they entered it into, the teacher entered our first assignment, which was poem, into a contest at Indiana University, and mine won something. I don't remember what. And so then everybody was like, oh, Lisa can write. And so, then I was like the editor of the newspaper, and they just kind of put me in this track. And all my teachers and counselors and guidance counselors in college and high school were like, you should be a writer and you should go into journalism. And I was like, well, I really want to write books. And they're like, but you need to, cut your teeth, right? You need to get your skills, and journalism is a great place to do that. And, but I really wish I would have just started writing for books then, but whatever. Anyway, so I was a journalist for years in Indiana and Texas. And then I was a writer, editor, and then managing editor. And then I had to come back to Indiana because my mom was having health issues, and I was her power of attorney and all that. So I came back and I was a journalist, and I was just like, I got to get out of it. It's a horrible lifestyle to live, because the tornado's going by and they call you and say, hey, get outside and cover it. You know what I mean? It's not like, people don't get how that is. They see it on TV and they make fun of them, but yet they really want to read those stories. So it's like this dichotomy that.
Right.
And,
well, especially now, I'm sure. I mean, I know my friends in journalism now, it's not as much fun.
No. And so I was like, you know what I really want? I really want to be and go into marketing. And if my dream job would be the marketing for a library. And so then the local library had a part-time job opening for marketing. And I was like, this needs to be full-time. But so I quit journalism, and I took that job, but I'm a single person. I needed the income. So I worked 6 part-time jobs for 3 years.
Holy moly.
I know, it was horrible, including search engine optimization writing, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, you poor thing. My heart goes out.
I know, right? If you've ever written it, you understand my pain.
I do.
But anyway, before the library was like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. We need this to be full time. And then I went full time at the library, and I love that because I love books. I love libraries, and so I get to talk to everybody all day about how wonderful libraries are. I get to help create programs and campaigns and things like that. And then it's my job to read about authors. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, this is so painful. And then just writing the book while I did that. So.
How long did this, well, actually, I'm going to save that for the Starfish section. I'm going to ask you one more for about, and then we're going to scooch into Starfish so I can get into the questions I've been itching to ask. So on your website, which we're going to have folks go check out sometime soon, there is a lovely mosaic header, and I loved your reasoning behind it. Do you mind talking to us a little bit about it? Because I thought it was really thought-provoking.
No, you're fine. I'm really big into symbolisms. I don't know if anyone else is, but I have it's a phoenix necklace, because I feel like I've been through so much. I feel like the phoenix all the time.
Yeah.
But so when I was trying to figure out what I wanted for my website, I thought a mosaic, because it makes sense, because I feel like I'm a survivor of different traumas, and I felt like that brokenness that you feel when you struggle with something big, especially multiple things big, which I think we all do if we're honest. Yeah. It feels like, there's nothing left of your life, and there's no normalcy. But yet, if you really think about it, life is all about picking up the pieces and making something beautiful out of them and piecing them together into something beautiful. And so mosaics mean a lot to me.
Yeah, same. And I love that message, and it hit me in my feels. So I'm going to read for everybody the blurb before we switch over into talking about Starfish. So sit tight, everyone. Ever since Ellie wore a whale swimsuit and made a big splash at her 5th birthday party, she's been bullied about her weight. To cope, she tries to live by the fat girl rules, like no making waves, avoid eating in public, and don't move so fast that your body jiggles. And she's found her safe space, her swimming pool, where she feels weightless in a fat-obsessed world. In the water, she can stretch herself out like a starfish and take up all the room she wants. It's also where she can get away from her pushy mom, who thinks criticizing Ellie's weight will motivate her to diet. Fortunately, Ellie has allies in her dad, her therapist, and her new neighbor, Catalina, who loves Ellie for who she is. With this support buoying her, Ellie might finally be able to cast aside the fat girl rules and starfish in real life by unapologetically being her own fabulous self. So tell me this. When you meet someone for the first time, how do you pitch your book? What's your elevator pitch?
Okay, now you're into my kryptonite zone because I'm really horrible about that.
Welcome back to Pit Mad.
I know, right? You're like, how do I sum up my life, my childhood of pain in, a tweet? Okay, you know what I mean?
Trauma.
But I basically say that it's a book about a girl who's bullied relentlessly because she's fat. And she learns that there's something wrong with the people who are cruel to her rather than that there being something wrong with her. And she learns to take up her space in the world and to be seen and to be heard and be noticed. And that's as elevatory as I get.
That was perfect. So, and we've talked a little bit on the origins a little bit, but as far as Ellie as a character, when you're fleshing her out, where does she come from and how much of you is in there?
I always tell people that everything that happened to Ellie happened to me in one form or another, and most of it happened exactly as written. And some of it is a composite, like the cannonball incident at the pool, the chair incident, the restaurant scene, the
restaurant scene ripped my heart out.
Yeah, I can take you to the place where it happened. And the big old fat thing comment that my mom made, being taken to doctor after doctor after doctor, diet after diet.
The dieting, I remember. Did you ever have to do the cabbage soup one? Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, cabbage soup, great.
Yeah, the only thing that was fair about that was my dad was a private pilot and had to fly me back to my mom's after having me on that diet for 2 weeks. And the farting in his tiny plane was such great payback. And I thought to myself when I read this, I thought, oh, that would be a scene that Ellie would enjoy. So anyway, sorry, because that was a little me moment coming out.
Yeah.
But that breaks me. So how did you get back to that place? Were there journals, or like was this just stuff that are scars that you can point to and touch and they're that close to the surface?
Yeah, they're that close to the surface. But what I did do, because I haven't tortured myself enough in life. I did go to the school because I went to the school I went through from K through 12. Right. Again, rural Indiana. And so the two buildings you had kindergarten was about a mile away, but then you had 1st through 6th grade in one building and 7th through 12th in the next. And they were only separated by a driveway. And so I went back to the schools and I literally sat in the parking lot on a Sunday because I didn't want to be some creep that watched kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't want that phone call to the police. But I went on a Sunday when, everybody's gone. And I just sat there and I stared at the school and I would stare at the playground and I would think about what people said and did and how they treated me and made me feel. And I would look at this room and I'd go, okay, that's the room where my teacher weighed me in 2nd grade, weighed all of us in 2nd grade on a lesson on less than and more than. Yeah, I know. Right. And so, and I did that because I wanted to, it's always been like right here. Right. But I wanted it like right at the top of my head. And so, yeah, that was a pleasant day. But yeah, that's sort of my method. It's sort of like a Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah, but I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. It's a deep dive and I'm here for it. This comment I felt, because I feel like we're in the similar age bracket, must be, When I was 12, I designed my own diet plan of iceberg lettuce, Diet Coke, and Richard Simmons, who I think of often, and I have heard is in some sort of cult. Michelle Schusterman looking up cult things for your book. I think that's what happened to him. I'll touch base with you on it later. It's funny and also devastating look at our body. Yes, and what was going on at that time.
Totally.
So yeah. This is just blowing my mind with what was going on at that school. I'm trying to figure out how weighing you was helpful. Although, let me say something else that this reminded me of that I had not thought about for many years. PE. That scar had just gone to I guess therapy had put that to the farthest, darkest corner of my mind until I read this book and was like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember all.
Seriously, I mean, okay, I know I'll get in
climbing the rope. Did you have to do the climbing the rope? That was the meanest thing I can ever think of. I looked like a meatball at the bottom of the spaghetti, just rolling around the gym. And these other little skinny kids are just climbing right up. And I'm just like, nope, still at the bottom.
A meatball hanging on the end of a spaghetti. Perfection right there.
Really?
If I were to read that in a book, it would be like the highlighted thing. I'd be like, that's perfection right there. Because that's exactly like that visual, right? But no, I hated it. I hated gym, and I understand the rationale by having, but quite frankly, there's so much going on in schools right now, and always has been, and academics is kind of important.
Yep.
I still don't understand why they even have gym class, because I mean, because what's going to happen is the kids who are active are always going to be active whether we have gym class or not. And the kids who are less active, they're less active for a reason. Because, when gym class, what happened to me was we had to always run these sprints to see how fast you could run during the presidential
fitness. Remember that?
Yes.
Never been so mad at Ronald Reagan. There were many things I was mad at that man for. But yes, go ahead.
And I'm like, yeah, like that means anything. But, I remember like you have to run as fast as you can and they record your speed, hoping that by the end of the year you've gotten faster, right?
Yeah.
And I remember that they would line up just to laugh at me running. And I'm like, you know what this is teaching me about fitness? It's teaching me to do it in private or never do it because you'll be laughed at.
Same. Yeah.
And so I'm like, so the people who are athletic and the people who love exercise, they're going to do that with or without that class. And the other people are not going to do it because they've been freaking scarred, you know what I mean, by life experiences. So I'm not sure why we have it, but I'll shut up now before I alienate all PE teachers in the world.
No. I mean, that I don't know how many are here, but if so, they'll have to get over it. But you're getting a lot of folks who had some similar PE trauma. So that's very universal and seems to be,
unfortunately,
more widespread than not. So talk to me a little bit so we've talked about how much of you is in Ellie. Now there's a pretty contentious relationship between Ellie and her mom. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me 195% of mine with my dad. Mm-hmm. And so talk to me a little bit about how much of that is or was your reality.
All of it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, my mom, and I always tell people this because I don't want to seem like I'm like, those people who like famous people and then their parents die and then they write these horrible books about them.
Right.
But that's not me. My mom was the most supportive and encouraging person when it came to my writing, my art, and my music. She was always like, oh my gosh, Lisa. I mean, to the point it was actually ridiculous. Like if she found out that I wrote a little brief in the newspaper about leaf pickup, she would clip it and save it. I mean, she was like, obsessive about supporting my writing career, to the point where when she got Alzheimer's and I had to like downsize her and move her in with me, I mean, there were 18-gallon totes full of that kind of stuff, right? So she was really great and supportive about my art, my music, and my writing. But she never, ever liked my body. She was never okay with my body. She hated my body, and she made it very clear. She used to say things like, when are you going to lose that weight so I don't have to be ashamed of you anymore? And, buying school clothes, she would take me straight to what I call the regular sizes, right? Regular, quote unquote. And then, you know, have me try them on. And some of them wouldn't even go over my head. And some of them, you know, get stuck on my arms or my thighs or whatever. And then she would just shake her head and say stuff like, don't you want to be pretty like all the other girls, you know? And why didn't you just take me? Because I had, she had another daughter who was older. I was the youngest, and I could fit in her clothes. Right. And I was just like, let's go down there where she's, but you know, she's older. She's like almost 10 years older than me. Like, let's go down there and I can find my clothes. My mom's like, those clothes aren't for you. And I'm thinking the clothes that fit are the clothes for me. Right. I mean, weird concept, but so buying clothes was like torture.
Oh yeah.
And I hated that until I got to be 16 and over my own money, and I could buy whatever I wanted. And then it was a lot easier because I knew what I had to do to find my clothes. But yeah, she was always saying things like that, taking me to doctor after doctor, saying what's wrong with her, what's wrong with her. I know there's something wrong with her. And I felt like a human pincushion because she would take me for lab work. She was just convinced there was something wrong with me, like, you know, and she would take me for lab work like 4 times a year as a child, right? Like anything's going to change in 3 months radically. But anyway, it was just,
especially for a kid, like
I know,
growing
right?
kid, like yeah.
So I mean, she said and did all those kinds of things. And it was just so interesting because her other daughter is fat, but she never said a word to her other daughter, never. And so then that made me go, now wait a minute, maybe there is something wrong with me as a person, that she's like coming after me and not, you know what I mean? And then like we would go to family reunions, which were like torture. And I had fat relatives, surprise, you know, genetics. And if they ever said anything mean to me, she would let them. But they were teasing a cousin of mine who was fat, and she jumped in and like defended him. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
What? You know?
Yeah.
And so my therapist and I have had this discussion. It felt like being on a teeter-totter, right? Because, oh, Lisa, you're an amazing writer, an artist and musician, but you're ugly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was like, and so you never had sure footing, and it was horrible. Yeah.
I'm going to read you some of these comments. The novel Nana says, I can relate to body shaming. My mom did the same to me because I wasn't a size 0 like my sister. Just Eva says, I went with a friend for school clothes shopping once, and the mother said to my friend around age 11 or 12, that isn't good for your waist. Your hips are too big. And I was just like, wow. This one, my mom would restrict what I ate because men don't want big women. I swear that's probably why I don't eat food like I'm supposed to. Author J.C. Carpenter says, oh, Lisa, I think we had the same kind of mom, minus the supportive part. Mine told me no one would ever want me because I didn't have a Coke bottle figure. My mom was my biggest bully growing up. J.C., I'm so sorry. I think because kids in those days were taught to be empathetic to those who were different, hence the only reaction was ridicule. The whole family is still to this day on me about my weight. Yeah, there are a bunch of those. I could keep reading. I've had my body dysmorphia for a long time, stemming from other family comments, but they were one-offs that stuck. F some parents doing it all the time. D.L. Tillery says, being heavy from my teens to now, going up and down, people who have never been fat don't understand what you go through. I was shamed as an adult, 150%. My mom was heavier for a long time until she ended up with cancer and lost a bunch of weight. Do the treatments and stuff, and has just stayed smaller since. But some of the stuff we put up with in airports and other places where people just, it boggled my mind. My husband used to say I was going to get arrested, not for like the protests and things I go to, but because of going off on someone in an airport for my mom. Probably true. Oh yeah, well, see, now we're all crying today. I told you, if you're coming to today's, this is one of those where we're going to be crying a little bit.
I'm sorry about your.
Yeah.
Did you see the one buying the clothes that were too small?
Let's see. Let me go back. I know. They're going so fast. You guys are going too fast for me.
I
know. Here we go. Eva said, my mom would purposefully buy clothes too small and humiliate me when they didn't fit. I can't.
You know what was fascinating to me was I was in this was before Starfish even came out. I was in my doctor's appointment, and I finally found a really good doctor, but 20 years, took 20 years to do it. But I was sitting there and someone who knew I was working on Starfish came over and said, how's the book going? And I was like telling her, and I was talking, and this lady beside me was like eavesdropping, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she was skinny. So I was like, wait a minute. She's eavesdropping because she's about ready to give me a lecture, about how fat is bad and you shouldn't be writing this. You know what I mean? You learn to brace, right?
Yep.
And so after my friend left, she said, this is my stepdaughter here. Can you talk to her for just a minute? Because she said her real mom and her grandma, they just bought her the most beautiful dress that was 3 sizes too small on purpose because they wanted her to feel bad, to lose weight. And she was so hurt and so humiliated. And that little girl, there was like a fish tank, and that little girl was like trying to hang out over there because, she was kind of embarrassed, but she was also kind of like wanting to hear the answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she came over, she said, do you mind talking to her? I'm like, absolutely not. And this is before Starfish. And so I just told her, and I was like, you know what? Gorgeous girl. And I was just like telling her how pretty she was and how she didn't deserve that, and that there was something wrong with them. And she, whenever they said those things, that she needed to remember, there's something going on in them. It feels like it's all about you, but it's really about them. And, I gave her all this talk, and she was so happy when she left, and it just solidified in this giant way how much Starfish was like. So it made me write faster.
Yeah. I mean, let me ask you this before I move on. Were you able to make peace with the parts with your mom that were painful? Were you able to kind of ever get her to see that some of it was hurtful, or own anything and kind of clear any of that air? Or is that just a something you put in a box and it's there and now it's here?
The good old therapy lockbox. Yeah, there's lots of stuff in there, but I would like to say yes, but I do remember, this was years after, because the big old fat thing was really the worst.
Oh my God, can't even imagine. Well, yeah. and the doctors with telling you needed surgery and no.
But we were sitting there in the house and watching television, and there's a fat lady, in the swimsuit on the beach, and it was like that typical, very stereotypical, like, let's do this funny thing for 2 seconds to make the audience laugh and do nothing really to advance the plot.
Right.
And of course they do an up close shot of all the rolls and the cellulite and all that. And my mom, and I'm sitting right next to my mom, and I mean, it's like a visceral memory. And she leans forward and she's pointing at that lady and she's laughing. She's like, look at that big old fat thing. And I just froze, right? Flight, fright, or freeze. And I just froze because I was like, oh my God, my mom thinks that I'm a thing. My mom thinks I'm a thing. My mom thinks I'm a thing. You know what I mean? It was like going on in my head. And I didn't say anything. I couldn't wait for the movie to be over. I went to bed after. I cried into my pillow all night. But that stuck with me more than anything. And so I confronted her years and years and years later. And I said, Mom, you remember that night we were watching TV and there was a show? And the fact that she remembered it tells me something. It tells me that she knew that she had screwed up. Yeah. And yet she, whatever. And I said, that really hurt. I said, from that moment on, I felt like a thing. And I said, and she goes, I wasn't talking about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or did you ever get I was just kidding?
Yeah. Oh, I hate that. It was just a joke. Can't you take a joke?
Just joking.
I hate that too. Yeah.
Jokes, when we both laughing. Like both of us think it's funny.
Yeah, exactly. We're not both laughing. It's not funny. And when she said that, I was just like, okay, she's too defensive. And then I said, well, it really hurt my feelings. And she goes, you're too sensitive. You like getting your feelings hurt. And that sounds like really horrible. It's true that she said it. It sounds horrible, but I think really what it is was all she ever wanted to do was be a mom. Yeah. And I think that feeling like she'd failed as a mother was too much for her to admit.
Yeah.
Right. But just because you make mistakes doesn't make you a horrible person, but you do need to own up to them and apologize. But So what was interesting was she had Alzheimer's, and she died last year, by the way. She died last April. She had Alzheimer's.
I'm so sorry.
And I took care of her for 10 years. And it was interesting because when I was reading, I was submitting this book to Nancy, and I was reading through it for the final time. And I always read aloud, right? And at the end, so that I can make sure I hear anything that sounds wonky. And so she's listening to it. And I don't know if you've known anyone with Alzheimer's, but you never know what they're going to focus on. Yeah. And so she was listening to it. And I got to that scene, Behold the Thing, that poem, which was the hardest poem I ever had to write my whole life. And she goes, "That's horrible." And I'm like, finally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because she didn't see it as herself, she could finally see it.
Exactly.
And I said, "You know what, Mom? That was horrible." You know what I mean? And so
you did, kind of.
It gave me this little bit of, but it wasn't really what I wanted, but it was as close as I'm ever going to get. So.
And that's, and sometimes that's enough, for me, that would be enough. So, So tell me this is a beautiful book written in verse. You just told us, I think, the half of the answer to this question, which was the hardest and which was the easiest?
Hardest was Behold the Thing. Whenever I do like readings, I will never, ever, ever read that out loud, because even when
like I did earlier.
Right. I mean, when I read that, I can't keep my composure. The easiest poem, believe it or not, some of them were easy, even though they were hard. If that makes sense.
Yep.
So I would struggle to say which one exactly, but one of the ones I think that was the easiest was, I think it ended up, the very last one, Room for Starfish, because it was so in me by that time that it was very quick to write and very easy to write because it was so in me by then. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of the book, I'm going to read the dedication, and I'm going to read your author's note, if you don't mind, for folks. We've kind of given them an idea of what the book's about, but I love these two things, and I want to ask you a question about them. To every kid who's ever been told you'd be so pretty or handsome if you are beautiful now, just as you are. You deserve to be seen, to be heard, to take up room, to be noticed. So when the world tries to make you feel small, starfish. And in your author's note, you say, Starfish is a work of fiction, and a lot of people will read this and think it's definitely fiction because people would never say or do such cruel things. But a variation of every single mean thing people said or did to Ellie happened to me when I was a child. Fat girl rules exist. If you're being bullied, I understand what you're going through and I care about you. You don't deserve it, ever, no matter what. Right now, many people still think it's okay to bully people who weigh more than they do. My hope is that Starfish will change people's attitude, and that one day, no one will be bullied because of their size or for any reason. But until that day comes, know that no matter your size or who you are lovable and deserve for people to treat you like you are a valuable person because you are. So would you say that that is your brand?
Okay, so I'm reading all these comments and trying not to cry. It's kind of torturous. But know that I'm listening, and I feel for all of you. I really do. It's sort of my brand, yeah. But my agent and I were talking about what my brand is, and and all those Starfish is all about, fat girls, and I'm definitely a fat girl. I've always been fat. That's me. Fat isn't my brand, really, because there's so much more to me than my weight. And I think that it's so easy sometimes for us to take on that. And not that there's anything wrong with being fat. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that.
Well, I didn't mean the fat. I meant the embracing of anti-bullying.
Oh, yeah, totally.
No, I meant the anti-bullying. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, because there have been, I've been asked to do some other projects since Starfish came out. And people are like, I know this is your brand.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry. I was like, wait a minute, my best friend.
No, I thought you were going that way.
Okay, sorry. Okay. No, sorry.
No, you're fine. It's okay either way.
Yeah.
they think that that's my brand, is to just
Yeah.
write about fat people. But I'm
Yeah.
like, no, there's much more to me about that. I mean, not that I wouldn't write about another fat character, because I'm sure I will.
Yeah.
But because there are 70% of us that are fat, ladies and gentlemen, and whatever gender you are, there is 70% of us are fat. Grow up, America. We're in the majority, but treated like a minority. And so, but my brand is tough topics. And I think bullying is where, if you think of any tough topic, right, you think about addictions, you think about abuse, whatever, there's always that element of bullying and underdogness there. Yeah.
Jennifer says, I just borrowed Starfish from my library. I can't wait to read it. Being physically disabled since birth and overweight, the bullying for me was intense as a kid as well. Jennifer, I'm so sorry. Thank you for being with us today. I am glad we were able to get you here. Let's, in your words, you tell me a little bit about why this story is so long overdue in this, especially in this age category.
Yeah. Well, that's a good, you know what? I think it's because it's a microcosm of society, right? Like I said, 70% of people in America are fat. And okay, are we or are we not capitalists? I'm pretty darn sure, America's capitalist, right?
Yes.
So when would the fashion industry, right?
Yeah.
Think about them. They ignore 70% of their potential customers to cater to the 30. Why would any capitalist do that? Hatred, prejudice, and bias, right? The anti-fat bias.
Yeah.
We don't want people. Look, I'm a designer. I design beautiful clothes. I don't want fat people in my clothes. You know what I mean? It's like this whole thing, because name me an industry where they would cater to the 30 and get sales on 30 instead of sales on 70%.
Yeah.
And I'm not even a math girl, and I can figure that out. And you know what I mean? So I think I think that there's just this whole thing in our society, and it's not just national. I'm getting ready to do an international visit here in a little bit, and it's everywhere. And that fat people don't have a right, that they need to change, that they don't have rights, that they don't need any accommodations, that they don't need any understanding, any empathy, any sympathy, anything, except to change or to go away, just go away. And I think that publishing, and although, publishing, and I'm not going to diss publishing by any stretch, but publishing is a microcosm of society. And I think, they're buying books from thin authors, that 30% of authors, or they're buying books from authors who are fat, but just don't want to talk about that and delve into that issue. Right. I mean, it's hard. That's opening up yourself to a lot. And I just think that for years, because when I wanted this, I was an avid reader. And every time I would go to the library, I would go and look, or to the Scholastic Book Fair, I would look for a book about a girl like me. And I was hoping that she was also, that the book would say, you know what, you're okay. And I never found it. And it just made me feel more different and more other. And when I started to write, and I thought, okay, I need to write this book, but let me do a quick search here and see if it's out there. And it wasn't. And I was like, Lord, have mercy. It's still not on the market. What's wrong? And I was afraid that it never would be, because I thought, well, I'm going to write it.
Yeah.
I can't get it published. That's not in my power or control, but I'm going to write it because I need to write it, whether it gets published or not. But I was so fortunate and so grateful to Penguin and Random House and Nancy Polson Books and Nancy Polson for believing in it and seeing the importance of the message. So I hope I answered your question. I rambled a little bit, but it all makes sense in my head.
No, you did wonderful. I'm going to touch on one more thing before I ask you if you want to do a reading. I forgot to ask you before if you wanted to or not. Are you open to that? Or are you?
If you want.
Are you kidding me? Okay, so the last thing I wanted to ask you about, on Robin and Joe's podcast, which I linked to in the description box below for anyone who is interested, you said something really amazing and profound, and I loved it. And you said that Ellie trusted you to tell her story. Would you tell us a little bit about what that means and what a writer should take away from that?
Yeah. So I don't know how anyone else's process is, but my process is that I get like these little video clips in my head. So just like you think of a Marvel movie trailer, right? So when a book is coming to me, when characters are coming to me, I get like these little movie trailers in my head and I watch them and I learn about the characters. I will watch a scene and I'll be like, who is this character? And is this the main character? Is this a secondary character? And what are they interacting about? And why is this an important moment? Why am I seeing this movie trailer? You know what I mean? Why is this highlight that's important? And I watch them and so yes, Starfish is my life, but it's Ellie's story, right?
Yeah.
I just helped her. I used my emotions and my experiences to help tell her story. But I feel like the books that I am writing have written are the characters come to me because they trust me with their story. And Ellie knew that I would understand the fat girl story. And with book number 2, that character knew I would understand his story. And I think that's how that works. I mean, and the reason I think that too is solidified when back in August or September, I woke up on a Saturday and these characters were talking to me. And it's for an adult novel. And it's like, I was having fun listening to them. It was like I was like literally laughing out loud because these are like the funniest characters ever. And I'm like, but this isn't a book that I would ever write. I would never even read this book because it's like in a genre that I don't, normally read and write.
Yeah.
But I was just like, you know what? They're coming to me. I've got to write this story. And the thought came to my head was like, just write it. Just write it. And so after I got 80 pages written that morning because they wouldn't shut up. The characters were like, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, okay. And then like 3 months later, I was like, oh, I get why they came to me. I can't tell you yet because I can't talk about the story, but I was like, oh, I get why they came to me. You know
We're best friends forever now, Lisa. You'll tell me eventually.
I'll tell you off
Live.
screen.
Just not live. Okay. I was like, you're going to tell me. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I think let's have you do a reading. I'm going to give you full screen and give everybody a taste of Ellie. I have tissues handy in case I don't know where you're going with it. So just in case I have them handy. And
I
full
read
screen,
this one.
let's tease
Does
them.
it matter which one?
No, please. It is your show. Take it away.
My show. No, this is your show. I'm just a very grateful guest. Okay. Where hate comes from. Will there ever be world peace when families can't even agree on what to have for dinner? Dad wants barbecue. Mom wants the latest, greatest, trendy restaurant. Anais wants anything non-American. Liam wants pizza. It doesn't matter what I want. Wherever we go, I don't even bother to look at the menu. Mom always decides what I get. We go to Mom's choice, and while we wait for our food, a little boy from the next table comes over. Dad plays up his accent. Well, howdy, little fella. The boy looks at me and then at his dad, who nods and grins. The boy faces me again. You're fat. He runs toward his dad, stops, comes back and adds, oh, and save some food for the rest of us, would ya? The little boy gets a high five from his dad, and everyone at their table dies laughing. In a flash, my dad's at their table. The little boy's dad stands up. Dad towers over the guy. Now I can imagine what Dad looked like growing up on the Panhandle Ranch and wrangling bucking bulls. A hush falls over the restaurant. You owe my daughter an apology. I'm sorry she's fat? The boy's dad chuckles. The manager comes over, steps between them. Let's all remain calm. Mom stands up. Stop, Philip. Let's go. We've been humiliated enough. We? We are out of here. Mom tugs on Dad's arms as she tells us kids to go to the car. Like I said, Mom always decides what I get.
That's the one that I just sat there reading and went, oh no. Oh, exactly. Eva just said the thing I was thinking. Oh, no, he didn't. And I read that. I literally didn't. No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ending was different for little Lisa, though. That's what I call her. But because that happened to me. And but I didn't have a dad. My dad died when I was 13 months old. So but my family was angry with me. They were angry with me because I had embarrassed them. And so the rest of the meal, I literally went to the bathroom and just hung out for a while, and the food got cold, didn't care. But I was just like, because I was like, it wasn't just facing all the people in the restaurant who heard and saw that, or the little boy and his dad. It was facing my family, right?
Yeah.
Because they
totally.
just total daggers at me
Sure.
for what had happened. And so
it was your fault, right? As if someone being cruel to you.
Right.
Oh my.
It's all your fault. You embarrassed us. You humiliated us. And I did not go out to dinner with my family for 6 years after that. I was, because I was 12 when that happened. And I was just like, I stay home by myself at 12 because I was like, I was scared that maybe another stranger would do that to me. I was more scared that my family would react the same or worse, like maybe chime in and add some jokes or whatever.
Yeah.
And so whenever they would go out to dinner, I'd say, just bring me something back. And I didn't for 6 years. It was very traumatic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh, Lisa, I am so sorry. I now give you now. If we were in person, this would be the Oprah moment, right? Try to hug you.
I'll take it.
All right. Well, let's shift gears. Let's try something a little different. And are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how good I'll be, but yes.
You're going to be wonderful. I have no doubt. So here we go. If you're ready, I'm just going to launch in.
Sure.
Morning person or night owl?
Neither. No, I'm more of a night owl than a morning person, for sure. I am like, hit the snooze button 18 times, girl.
Fair. I'm here for that life. Coffee or tea?
Tea. Coffee makes me sick.
Okay. When are you the most productive on writing? I guess time of day, I should have said.
It depends, because since I have a day job.
Yeah.
After work, Monday through Friday, but on the weekends, I'm a marathon. I like do like 8 to 10 hour writing times.
Oh, holy moly. Okay.
I know.
Killing it. Summer or winter?
Oh God, summer.
Same.
Summer.
Same. Anybody from the Midwest? Summer. Who inspires you in one sentence and why?
Holy crap. Okay, you know what? Okay, I'm going to dig deep here.
Yeah.
Little Lisa.
Okay.
Because without her, I would never have survived my childhood, my traumas that I went through. It wasn't just about the weight, there were other issues. Yeah. And I keep telling people she is the original badass.
Yeah, 150. That's an amazing answer, and I'm here for it. What was your best subject in school?
Writing.
Worst subject in school? PE?
If that's a subject. I don't think it's a subject. I think it's a torture chamber.
I would have claimed that torture too.
Okay, but yeah, it's PE or math. I hated math. I mean, I could do it, but I hated it.
I could have done your math homework for you. Cats or dogs?
Dogs, 100%.
Well, what advice would you give your younger self?
Okay, I just self-edit. You don't know how big I just edited myself because I almost said something that was profane.
You can say profane. I'm not monetized yet. Go turn it loose.
But I write for children, so I always like, well, in case a child finds this video,
that's fair.
I need to behave.
Yes.
Don't listen to them. Listen to yourself and not to them.
Would you rather watch a sunrise or a sunset?
Sunset, because I don't have to get up early.
What is the first thing you notice about someone when you meet them?
Their eyes.
What's the best compliment you've received?
That's a hard one. Probably, just to boil it down, it's like one person, but that I've changed lives.
Yeah, good, because that was the one I was going to give you for me. Your cheat answer would be life changer. Describe yourself in 5 words.
That's so mean.
5 adjectives that you just
5 adjectives.
you.
Okay. Funny.
Yes.
Independent.
Yep.
Empath.
Mm.
Creative.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 4. Unstoppable.
Love it. If you could say one thing to your creator, what would you say?
One thing to who?
Your creator, God, whoever
Oh,
you're.
okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
And last, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh my God, I have debated this so many times because I am a huge Wonder Woman fan. And I am like torn between the gift of invisibility, because I would love to be invisible just because, you know why? Because I want to hear what everybody's saying when I'm not around. Because then you know who your real friends are. So that's one. But I also love her lasso of truth.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So either way, you're getting to the truth. You get where I'm going here. So I'm torn between those 2.
Hi, Portia. Thanks for popping in. Those are excellent. We have quite a few great questions that I'm going to turn to so we can get to some of the questions from the audience. Are you ready?
Sure.
First up is, what was the hardest scene for you to write?
Behold the Thing. Because I had to just relive it. And
when you got the book, was it like the actual, not your proof, but your real copy? Did you reread it like when it came?
I was terrible. It was the ARC. This is the ARC. I read from the ARC. I probably shouldn't because there might be some changes, but whenever I do my readings, I do from the ARC. But I got it and I was like, if I read it and I see anything wrong, I will like torture myself. So I was just like, but about 6 months later, I reread it, but not then. I didn't.
Not then. Mm-hmm. What was the, let's see. Bex, I was sorry. I already did that one. Here we go. Jennifer Brown. Do you still have the YA version of the story?
I do. It's in the recesses of my computer and my backup cloud drive.
Interesting. Here is a question related that I'm curious about. Have you thought about writing a different book handling the same material, but for YA?
You know?
Or maybe making Ellie, like growing Ellie up.
Yeah. So see, that's the thing. I am not a sequel girl. I rarely read sequels. I mean, like I read all the Hunger Games, right? But the first question I got from the very first school visit was from a little boy who said, is there going to be a prequel or a sequel? And it cracked me up because, and I laughed. And then I told the little boy, I was like, I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because you think of things I didn't even think of. And so I keep getting asked, where's Starfish 2?
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, so do I keep it middle grade? If I were to write it, do I keep it middle grade and I keep it on Ellie, or do I maybe explore Viv's story? Because I really love Viv, because she's like the anti-Ellie, right? She's fat, but she's supportive. Yep. Or do I grow her up and make a YA? And I don't know the answers to those.
That's interesting. What, may I ask, are you writing? Were you a multi-book, or are you working on contract now? Do you have a book due?
Nancy is editing book 2 right now. And then I'm writing book 3 for her. Yeah.
All middle grade?
Those 3 are middle grade for sure. And then I have a YA that I actually started writing before Starfish, and then I stopped because I was like, no, Starfish has to be my first. And so I have a YA that I need to finish and market, and then several other, you know how writers are. We're like, ooh, pretty shiny thing.
Yes. Just Eva, speaking of pretty shiny, my favorite pretty shiny writer, Just Eva says, have you had any childhood bullies reach out to you? This is a great question. Reach out to you in adulthood after publishing.
You know, actually, I reached out to one of them because I'm kind of bold that way.
Spill it.
Yeah. I was like, I was on Facebook and I was talking to a friend of mine from high school, and I noticed she was friends with somebody who was friends with one of these bullies, one of the ones who was one of the hallway guys. And And I would send him a private message on Facebook. I said, I don't know if you remember me or not, but you used to do this to me and it was horrible. And I can see from your photos that you're a dad and you have children and stuff now and you have girls. And I really hope you have changed, because I would hate for you to be raising children with that much hatred and anti-fat bias and all that. And then he hit on me.
I'm sorry, what?
For a hookup, right? And I was like,
so now you're like, okay, well, this is why
he's a creep. He didn't, I mean, because he was like, but you're beautiful now. And I'm like, whatever.
Next.
You know,
like,
he's probably drunk, who knows? But I was just like, block. But yeah. But it is amazing though how many people from my school days have friended me on social media as the word has gotten out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's interesting because you didn't friend me in high school. But you know, I mean, I don't say it.
Right.
I think it.
You think it. Well, and I'll tell you that in a second. Eva says, when I agree with it, ooh, she's bold, another adjective. That could have been one of those words. You are bold. I also think probably like they're going to be wondering if they may be featured, right? Don't you think a little bit? Some of them are like, oh,
Some of them are. Like Marissa and Courtney, those are composite characters, right?
Listen, Marissa and Courtney, the little in the bathroom situation, what they did to her shirt thing, it was like, listen, I know you two little, I'll get you. I'll get you. So we have some good questions here. I love this one. How about, what are you writing next? Which you said you've got book 2, 3, and 4, all in middle grade. You mentioned an adult story. So might you write outside of middle grade YA in the far-flung future?
I think so. My agent is always like, don't you dare yet.
I mean,
stay firmly grounded in middle grade for at least 3 books before you start. She goes, we can be selling them, but those 3 have to come out before the others come out. And I'm like, okay. And that's fair. But because I think it's because I was a journalist for so long. I can't, you know, I mean, I covered everything from square dancing llamas to President Clinton's trip to Appalachia. You know, I mean, there's range, right? And I think that's the same with my book writing. I can't just stay in one little.
Yeah. I love it. You can't be tamed.
Ooh, I like that.
You're welcome. The novel Nana says, what is the one message you hope everyone receives from reading Starfish?
You know, it's interesting because, yes, I get all kinds of emails, much like yours. But I get them from boys, girls, people of all genders, people of all ages. I get them from children. I get them from teenagers, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and even people in their 70s who have read this and said, you know, you healed parts of me I didn't realize were still broken. I think, and some of them relate because like this one lady, she's 6'4", and she goes, I relate because I'm tall and people treat me bad because I'm tall. I've had a little girl write to me who has Crohn's, and she relates to it because she has Crohn's. And what I think so therefore what I say all that to say is I think the one message of hope is that there's nothing wrong with any of us. We just need to be ourselves and feel free to be ourselves and to Starfish, which is just taking up your room in the world, right? Whether you're an artist, whether you're a mom, whether you're a teacher, I don't care what you do or what your talents or your gifts are. You just take up your room, no matter who you are, and you're okay just as you are. No changing needed.
Don't let anybody dim your sparkle.
Yes.
I'm here for all of that.
Yes.
And I'm wondering this about you. At what point did you realize you knew your true north? That you were sure you were okay? That you didn't need to change? When was that moment for you? When was your aha moment that it's not me, it's them?
Mm-hmm. You know, I wouldn't say it was one moment. I think it was an accumulation of moments where I got tired of hating myself. It wasn't so much that I believed in myself at first, as much as I was tired of hating myself. It's like, I hate myself, but why do I hate myself? I don't hate myself because I hate myself. I hate myself because everybody tells me I should hate myself.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's dumb and that's stupid and that's wrong. And it's all kinds of horrible adjectives. I probably shouldn't use dumb and stupid, but, and so that was like okay, right. I'm hating myself only because other people tell me to. That's messed up. And then I worked toward healing little Lisa, right?
Yeah.
And I'm still in therapy to heal the other traumas and things like that. But I think it was just an accumulation that the final moment was I'm tired of hating myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now would you say you're in a place of love where you've loved yourself now more than ever?
Well, first of all, I love little Lisa, quite frankly. And that's, I just refer to that as my childhood self, right?
Yeah.
Because seriously, every time I think of her, I think, man, like I said, there were other traumas involved that I won't list at the moment, but I'm like, she did this and she did this and she did this. And even as an adult, I'm not sure I could have done that, and she's a child and she did that. And so I think I just got lost in my thought. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm gonna ask you another one because it's something I've talked about in this channel, and I talk about it a lot because I work with LGBTQ youth. So something I talk pretty openly about is a suicide attempt that I had as a late teen. Mm-hmm. So did little Lisa ever have those feelings, that sense of
Totally. Yeah, totally. I've had suicidal thoughts, tendencies, ideations for many times over the years. Many times I remember getting in my car and driving like for 4 hours looking for a bridge to drive off of, that kind of thing. Totally. Yeah. Totally.
And so for you, then this book has to have been a little bit of letting some of that pain from the past go. Yeah.
You know what's healing to me is every time my story heals someone else, it feels like not that I ever wanted what happened to happen, mm-hmm. but at least it's redeeming myself and others in some way.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And there's something about when you are vulnerable with other people and let them know your pain, then they're willing to share theirs back. You know what I mean? There's something magical about that, where people feel more connected when they understand that you share that thing. So let me ask you this. I'm going to get back to some questions because we have some amazing ones. But before we do, is there a time from when you were growing up that you left out of the book because it was just too much, or it was too painful, or there was something that you thought, no, I can't relive that one? And not that you have to tell us what it is, but was there something that you held back?
Yeah. I just don't want to trigger anybody. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, trigger warning, there was some abuse involved as when I was a child. And that's part of my journey as a fat person, right? Was my survival was seeking comfort in food after abuse. And but I couldn't tell that part because I didn't want to dilute the story. The story was really about, being who you are.
Yeah.
And not a survival story. That's another book.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, I'm going to get some of these amazing questions. Grayson Wild asks, and I love the question, what's something that you're really wanting to write that you haven't yet?
A book of poems on love. Yeah.
There was a great anecdote on your website about writing a love poem and reading it in class, in a creative writing class, and the boy that it was about asked you for the poem and you gave it to him. Did you ever write a love poem for anyone else since?
Yeah.
Everything about that.
It's so funny because every time I see him, he still lives in the community, and I see him or I hear about him and I'm like, you still don't know that poem was all about you, baby. It was all about
Reread it. Oh, I love it. Author JC Carpenter says, question, is there any genre that you would never consider writing in?
Probably fantasy, and only because I totally appreciate fantasy, but I am such a pantser. I'm not sure I could do a good job of world building for fantasy, right? But character comes to me, I'll try.
Never say never.
Yeah.
How about this? Colin Clark, who is one of our UK people, who is up so late, by the way, Colin. It's like midnight there. Thank you. You're the MVP.
Yes.
Is Starfish doing well in the UK? Because it needs to.
Oh, yeah, it is. You know what's interesting is I do have a lot of followers in the UK. And part of it, I think, is because the designer of the cover, Tara O'Brien, is from Dublin, Ireland.
Really?
Yes. And
this cover, by the way, were you thrilled with this cover? Was this because some
I wept.
Okay, because listen, if this was my cover and I opened this up, I'd have been ecstatic.
When they sent the pencil drawing, the very first draw, because I was scared.
Oh yeah,
I was
I
like,
think traditional.
I was afraid they would like skinny her down.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah,
and all this other stuff. And but Nancy Polston again was just amazing. She asked for all kinds of input. She probably regrets it because I sent her this 11 by 17 photoshopped thing that I did. I like this. I like that. I like that. Anyway, but when I got the first pencil drawing, I was like, I wept and I was like, we're golden. Because if this is the very first, it was perfection anyway. I mean, it was pretty much the cover as it is. I was like, okay, we're good. We're good. But yeah, you know what, where I'm getting some hits is it's interesting to see like where people respond in the UK, but also Turkey. Starfish is in Turkish. It was the first foreign rights that I sold, and because Turkey is dealing with fat shaming, and then Asia is really big. As a matter of fact, I'm getting ready to do my first my first virtual foreign visit, outside the U.S. visit to Shanghai tonight because people in China and Korea are getting fatter and fatter as a people. And yet it's very taboo. It's literally shaming your family for you to be fat, unless you're a boy. Boys can be chubby and it's cute and funny and adorable, but girls can't. And so, yeah, it's amazing where you see the pockets of anti-fat bias popping up worldwide.
It is interesting. The novel Nana asks you, where do you think Ellie would be in 10 years from this story? Where do you hope she will be?
I see her as like, now that she knows how to starfish, I see her teaching other people to starfish. And I see her as like a movement, you know what I mean? Like that she inspires others. But then she also, I think she would just be happy.
Yeah. I hope so too. I think at the end, what I hoped for her most was just the happy ending I think she deserved. Like that's ultimately what I hope it is. If Novel Nana asks, if you weren't able to write and overcome the trauma, how else might you have creatively worked through it? Art, for sure. Yeah.
I do watercolor painting.
Yeah. The Novel Nana also asks, what surprised you most about publishing this book?
How successful it's been. I know it's weird because it's like, it's my first book.
I know.
And you want your first book to be successful.
Can I just say, if there was going to be a unicorn, I am bloody happy it's you. Like, you know what I mean? I'm glad it's this story and this message. If it's right, I mean, if it's going to happen. Yeah. Okay. Let it be this one.
Because you want your first book to do well, because then you can have a second.
Of course. And they'll pay you more.
But you know what I mean? At the same time, when book one is so well received, then you have all this pressure from all your other books that I would have put myself in that pressure anyway, but it just like amped it up. But it's, what the weirdest thing is for me is when people want my autograph. Because I'm like, first of all, my handwriting is so horrible after all those years of writing so quickly for journalism. It's just ridiculous. But but it's just so, I remember wanting Sonia Soanes's autograph, right? And fangirling over her.
Who wrote your blurb?
I know. And then when people want mine, I'm like, it's the weirdest feeling. And I don't know if I will ever adjust to that. Like, you want my signature? What? I don't know.
Just because even though we're best friends forever, we meet, you're signing all my things.
Yes. I will sign anything you need from me.
Natalie Locke asks, and in the querying trenches right now. So Natalie is querying a book as we speak. Good luck, Natalie. How do you feel now that you wrote Starfish? Was it cathartic, therapeutic? FYI, my daughter is 11 and I plan to get this book for her. Might be a mother-daughter book club. This is an excellent mother-daughter book club, Natalie, especially since I saw you talking about how being teased for being the thin one. Yes, all of that. So 10, let me know how it goes. So what would you say to that as far as the cathartic and therapeutic, and how do you feel now that it's behind you?
Writing it was therapeutic. And the reception that it got, because quite frankly, I was a little terrified. You know, I was afraid I would get like all of these trolls on social media and going, you know, you're promoting obesity, blah, blah, blah. And I haven't had any yet. Knock on my table. I would just block them if I did. But I think, how do I feel now is that I feel like validated. You know what I mean? That because when people say it was horrible what happened to her, no one had a right to treat her, that I'm like, little Lisa goes, thank you.
Yeah. No, I'm sure that's true. How about want to show off a watercolor painting for us? Do you do that on your social media? If folks were to follow you on Instagram and stuff?
I think I have a couple. I'm checking my Instagram really fast. I know I did on my original one, but I don't remember if I put it on my hacked one. Yes, there's some. There's like 3 or 4 there.
Instagram, Eva. Maggie asks, would you ever speak at a women's empowerment conference or a teen encouragement or anti-bullying conference?
Sure.
I think that would be a wonderful thing. What books are you reading, or what are you reading now?
I read so much, and I have a very small space, so I'm running out of room, and so most of my stuff is on Kindle. I'm very eclectic in my reading and my writing. But so some of the things I'm reading right now, some of them are craft, like Wired for Story. That's a book on craft. Just Like Jackie. I'm just scanning through here. A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis.
Yep.
And then The Space Between Lost and Found, Just Under Clouds, Rule of Threes. Because I never read one book at a time either. I'm that girl.
Oh, now see, I'm jealous of that. I'm a one at a time. It's the one thing. My husband's like, you do one thing at one at a time, and it's the reading.
I can't. My brain is too. Like when I watch TV, I'm also reading, or I'm also writing, or you know what I mean. I can't just do one thing at a time.
I mean, that's kind of amazing. I'm here for all of that. Well, I don't want to keep you too long because I want you to have time in between this event and your next one and to freshen up because it's your first international. And I don't want you to be like, oh, that Barrett drugged me long. So we're going to start getting to the end, but I wanted to close off with this. So something I'm going to ask folks, a new show that's starting in February, is what is their word for 2022? If they had to choose a word that is their mantra for 2022, and I'll tell you mine so that you can know what I'm kind of aiming for myself. But for 2022, my word is motivational. And that's for both myself, to motivate myself to finish this draft of this book and get it ready to get out there and get queried. And then for other people, right? That's the whole point of this channel, is to bring people on that inspire people and keep them working towards their books, their goals, and their writerly things that they want to accomplish. How about you? Is there a word that sums up what is Lisa's goal for 2022, your driving force, your mission?
Oy. See, you're asking one word, and I'm an author. I should be able to do one word. Love.
Love. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that's hard.
Yeah, that's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Love is hard.
Love is hard. Well, we love you.
And I love you back.
Well, good. This has been absolutely amazing. I can't thank you
I
enough.
knew this would be fun because, like, as soon as you started contacting me, I'm like, oh, we're going to vibe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. I'm not getting like in my name. Lisa's new BFF.
I loved that when I saw that. I was like, oh, that's great. I almost put Mrs. Antonio Banderas or Mrs. Henry Cavill, and I thought, no, I can't do that.
Oh, you absolutely could have. But you would have been among friends here. It would have been A-okay with that. Lisa Fipps, this has been incredible. You mean the world to me, as you saw multiple times here tonight, and I'm definitely not going to make you cry right before we go. But I think you are wonderful. This book changed me, and I think is going to change a lot of other people and make a big difference in a lot of people's lives. And this is incredible, and I can't thank you enough for it. I hope that when you have other amazing books to share with the world, you will come back and hang out with me again.
Totally.
And we can do this all over again. I'll fanboy each time. You'll get the same treatment.
I love it.
Wonderful.
And I will fangirl over you when you publish.
Well, traditional publishing, that book will be ready by 2025.
I know, right? It takes forever.
Yeah. Whatever, it's fine. We'll get there. Oh yes, one question from Nana that I did miss that I wanted to throw out: merchandise. Is there any Starfish merchandise?
I have a couple of posters that I created. You can download for free. You just have to print them on my website.
Okay.
I think it's under resources. I'm trying to do t-shirts right now, but I am so busy that figuring out which like vendor to use to do that. It takes more time than you would think in today's computer-friendly world. They're not as intuitive as they should be. And I want to make sure I have a vendor that offers really big sizes and not just like, extra larges are big. Yeah. And so I'm hoping to do some t-shirts.
Okay.
But I don't know. If you have ideas, I'm open.
Oh, I'm king of ideas. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody out there. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you for coming and hanging out with us. You're getting all the love from folks. I mean, I'm getting best interview, which thanks. But when your guests make it real easy. I thank you all so much for being here. I love you all. You're wonderful. Stay healthy and well. And I will see you again soon.